But I think there's a part of Varun which also focuses on the things that are not your strengths, right? Like when you first started podcasting, or when you started the glitch, or when you started working in MTV. How did you jump on to learning? Like what are these things that you do that keeps you an everlasting learner in the process of growing up and giving back to the community?
So I've looked at every job. I look at my time at MTV, even doing my entire, like till now, my stint at Glitch, right? I've always, in the professional side, I've always looked at the fact that you need to fill gaps. There will always be people who can do many parts of the job.
Correct.
What most of them struggle with is who's going to fill the gap. So at MTV, for instance, when I went into intern, I just spent a lot of time figuring out what every producer needed, which they didn't get. Someone needed someone to go keep scouting for faces to put on a style show. Someone needed someone to do research for a reality show. The other person needed someone who could just write like short VJ scripts, stuff like that. So I would go volunteer to do those. I'll say, I'll figure this one out. Let me just do that for you. And that made me do, it brought a few things to light. One is the fact that I got to learn because I was doing multiple things. What I also got to do was they saw me as someone they could rely on for stuff which they didn't want to do or didn't have the time to do. So made my 4 months of internship in a way, like I literally worked on, I think, almost all the shows MTV had at that point of time. In some capacity or the other, including being randomly at the back of the camera or in front of the camera, all kinds. What also happened when Glitch started off is that Rohit and I have similar mindsets in terms of how we look at creative. I had done a lot more logistics work. So I took on the role of running operations, looking after finance. I'm terrible with numbers. I handled finance for a large part of the early years of Glitch. I looked after production. But even there, eventually you hire people because they can do specific things really well. You groom them, give them the space to do that really well. And you take care of the stuff which they shouldn't take care of. Don't have them take care of, a payment that's gone sideways, or a contract that has to be read, or literally the loo is not working. So that would be my focus. Let's make sure all that stuff is taken care of. Let them focus on the job. And I feel that's the most, my biggest learning as an entrepreneur has been that an entrepreneur's job is not to do the work, it's to fill the gaps. That's how I look at it. I still look at it that way, is that fact that assemble the right set of people, unleash them and give them everything they need, and just fill the gaps is all you need to do. Podcasting was interesting for me because it was after a long time a way for me to get into the actual doing. Not the managing, not the execution. So I was actually doing the work from an execution standpoint, not from a managing standpoint.
Correct.
And it made me also rework a bunch of things. Like I never spoke this at this pace in my life. I've always been like a quick talker. Like I normally talk like this. You realize the pace is much faster. But podcasting has made me a slow talker. It's taught me to be more clear about my thoughts, articulate them better. It's helped in the job as well. Suddenly I'm this slightly more articulate person who speaks a little more clearly, because I would always be this person who has ideas going like 5 steps ahead. But because I've gone 5 steps ahead in my head, I'm talking about that step. I'm not talking about how I've gotten there.
Got it.
So there are many times I know that I've had people in the team who've been with me for a long time say that knowing him, he's thought of something. He doesn't have the patience to tell us why he went there, but he's figured something out. So they kind of let that one pass. After 13 years, they're all like, it's okay, he's figured something. So podcasting was great for me to get into that. And that's where I really started to enjoy systems. Till now I was building systems for other people, for them to kind of use, for them to perform better, to solve their problems. Here I started building systems for myself. And then the more I explored systems people use, like even writing a book, right? I wrote a book in a slightly non-traditional system. I used a note card system, which Ryan Holiday, the Stoicism writer, uses. So I did the note card system. A loose version of it, I adapted it to my own style of research and writing, but I actually have like an entire book full of those note cards, which is not his style of printed out note cards. I literally took pages, but broke them into 2 parts and just wrote on that.
Okay.
So I could plan out what was in each chapter, what stories I was putting in, what quotes I was including, figure the flow of the chapters by just taking that as a system. So I spent a lot more time on that because the writing came in instinctively. I could sit and write 1,000 words in an hour, which is how I normally write. My pace of writing is reasonably quick as long as I have a semblance of the idea I'm going to write about.
Got it.
As you see, there's a trend here. I'll do research. I'll put a lot of stuff everywhere. When I sit down to execute, I have stuff with me. I have the fodder. Now I'm just sitting and writing, or I'm just sitting and recording.
Got it.
So these systems are only, I would say, 3-4 years old. I didn't need them before. Before I was solving problems for a brand, for a client, for a TV channel, for a team member. Here I'm solving problems for myself after a long time. And that made me discover that I enjoyed this a lot. Correct. So the book writing process for me was actually one of the most fulfilling processes creatively I've had in my life. It was a good 7-8 months of just sitting and really focusing on one piece, putting it together, changing it around, allowing myself the individual space to work on a project that way. Compared to everything else that I've ever done, which has been a group activity. Correct. So I'd say that's how the systems came in from the creator side, which have now also helped me a lot on the professional side, because I get to add a lot more hands-on when I'm needed to. Even before I would, but before I would from an experience standpoint, because I would know, okay, someone has a problem, this is how someone did it, or how we did it like 3 years ago, or I know there's a person here who can help you. So I would do that. But now actually, like after a long time, I would say hands dirty. This is how things are happening right now.
Got it. I think it makes a lot of sense because, once you figure out the structure that works well for you, you just sort of go after it, right?